might actually work.
Yeah, the Unnamed Res podcast. How niche can you get?
Right?
It's about as niche as you get.
Let's try to narrow our audience to about a dozen people.
That's right. That's right. They're going to argue with us on Facebook.
Hell yeah. That's actually, I don't mind that. I kind of want, actually, that's one of the reasons why, like with this show, that was one of the things that I like to talk, obviously. But the thing is I also like to debate, and actually start a real conversation that's going to, end up, it could even start surface level, but as long as it starts digging down, like that's what I want.
Do you think anybody elected now would actually go on an actual debate, like recorded?
I don't know. Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
As long as they could pick which questions get asked.
Well, I mean,
shit you know nothing about.
That's what fucking happened on Meet the Candidates.
It happened to me too. I didn't do as well though. I forgot. There's a public speaking trick that politicians do. You don't actually have to answer that question.
No, you pivot.
Yeah.
You pivot.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll get back to you. Now let's talk about the thing I actually want to talk about.
Yep.
That's a mistake I made. I was too busy showing off.
I know you. That's what, honestly, because I walked away from that and like everybody who I talked to, but because you and I didn't go into it adversarial at all, you know, because that wasn't, you and I both had pretty much the same goal.
Yeah.
But I walked out of there that night and and it wasn't just my wife, but they told me, they were like, you won that night.
Yeah.
You know, like you, and I think the focus was more on the other two, not you and I.
Yeah.
But I felt like I did well that night.
Right.
And of course, both of us knew it wasn't going to make a big impact anyway, because
5 people watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have more watches on our fucking podcast.
Actually, you know what? I think there was like 3,000 views on that shit.
Was there?
Yeah. Probably 1,000 of them was
the federal government.
Bev or no, I shouldn't harass her. But it's
because she got elected and she could pull your house away.
I know, right? You're like, nope, I ain't going nowhere. That's what we even before we moved in there, we all just told her, because like you've been on our road before, right? It's all, so a certain family member was like, if they ever tried to do that, we'll just take them all out. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
They're never getting rid of us.
I think we need more of that. I think it's been a while. The last time a cop car got set on fire was like 3-4 years ago. I think we need another one.
Well, I wasn't a big fan of that happening, but it was.
I'm always a fan of cop cars bursting into flames.
I know you are. You and I, we're gonna end up talking about cops again and how. I mean, basically, let's condense it down. Isaac thinks that we need cops right now because we need someone to help with the community. Josh thinks get rid of them already, and we'll fucking figure it out.
Exactly.
I mean,
fair enough.
It is. That's kind of where we. I don't know how many times we talked about cops.
Yeah.
But it's not like, I don't think that when we talk about that stuff, it doesn't come across as like that it's not genuine.
Yeah, we probably agree on the underlying problem.
Yeah.
It's just the solution's different.
Oh, I think we definitely agree on the underlying problem. It's, a lot of it comes from, most of it comes from the outside.
And power.
Mm-hmm. And that's, and honestly, part of it is money too. Mm-hmm. Because like from working in the court, I got to see stuff, and people think about the criminal justice system, and really all they think about is like the legal proceedings themselves.
Yeah.
But what they don't see or possibly understand is that this is billions and billions and billions of dollars to lock people up.
Yeah.
To have probation.
Right.
To
a lot of jobs.
A lot of jobs.
Tons of jobs. After people.
What would happen to Malone if the fucking prisons weren't there?
God, I wish the prisons weren't there.
So do I, but it's like, what would happen to that economy?
I think the reason the North Country is such a shithole is because the prisons are there.
When you think about it, right? What's a prison? It's like maybe not the ultimate, but it's one of the, like, it's one of the focal points of like institutionalism. Yeah.
And I notice, as someone who does the news, I notice the propaganda when it comes to bail reform, and it comes to I can hear the propaganda because I don't write the news. I read the news, but I read the news and I interpret it. So I'm not making fake news, but I'm skipping the bullshit. Like this part, this writer who wrote this article is getting paid by the word.
Mm-hmm.
So he added this part to pad the article.
Right.
Or this writer is, I don't know if they're paid directly from like the prison industry or the union or whatever, but they're adding this. So their big thing is to crank down. Oh, bail reform's the problem, and that's why the prisons are out of control. When the prisons have always been out of control because they're fucking prison.
Yeah.
And when you put people in a cage, they're gonna act up.
Yeah.
It happens at schools too. So, so I read that and I'm like, well, this is obviously like fucking propaganda, and it's gross. It's so gross.
That's kind of the way, because I worked on a bail reform project for the court, and it was essentially came down to pretrial supervised release. So basically probation, but done by our court and our people instead of going to, and especially in lieu of them sitting in jail pretrial when they haven't been convicted of anything,
right?
Which fucking bothers me.
Yes.
But all I know is that because we got that going before New York had announced the huge bail reform, no more locking up people pre-trial if it's like a misdemeanor, all that stuff. And you immediately saw people around here because the prison system is so vital to the economy, right? Freaking out about it.
Yeah.
And then to be honest with you, there's a lot of fucking hillbillies who just want to lock people up. Yeah. Even before they've been convicted of anything. Right. Even if it's a fucking nonviolent crime.
Until it's their turn.
Right. Exactly. Well, now I want bail reform. Yeah. This is bullshit. Why am I sitting in here?
Now I'm a libertarian.
Because you got drunk and beat up your girlfriend, you fucking toothless freak.
That's usually what it is, right? Some kind of shit. I was driving with no tags on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And okay. But now that you're on the other end of it. And so seeing that, and I actually got into a debate with my cousin on my mom's side of the family, which is the white people's side of the family. And of course, having grown up in Oswego County from the age of 4 till 21, a lot of hillbillies there too.
Yeah.
So, these people are Trump fans, just all in their own bubble, which pretty much everybody is now anyway. But the whole thing is, they're bitching about all of this stuff, well, you're letting all these people out there. They should be held in jail. Well, why? Yeah. Because they did this. Have they been convicted? Well, no. Right. Okay, well, you love the Constitution, right? Have you ever read the fucking thing? Do you actually understand that? There is due process and it's there for a reason. But the system has become so out of control that now we're going to allow them to just throw anybody in fucking jail before they've been convicted of anything. And not only that, this is another ridiculous way that New York does shit. I respect, when we did that project, we were working with the judges in Bombay, right? Judge Smith, Judge Durant, awesome guys. Loved working with them. They're great and fair. I can actually say that. Fair from what I saw. And they actually didn't want to lock up people. So they were all on board for this program. But the thing is you get these hillbilly ignorant people who are now a judge who can lock you up. Obviously there's a lot of lawyers who have problems. Yeah. Understood.
I bet a few.
Yeah. I mean, I worked with a lot of lawyers, but the thing is that you're not getting to the point where now you're at, okay, well, this guy who didn't even graduate high school can be a judge.
So that means I can be a judge?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Maybe I'll run for judge instead of chief.
You know what? PJ and I talked about this before. Because you can do that, right? Well, we can vote in Bombay elections.
That's true.
We outnumber them so much. We could actually put 2 Mohawks into those town judge positions. We could. But our people won't vote in them because, the whole fucking, the whole...
We kind of shoot ourselves in the foot with that.
That's what I'm saying is I agree. I'm not going to pledge allegiance to the flag or any kind of
Right.
shit, but use their system against them.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
I've heard that. I rarely see it happen.
No.
Typically what I see happen is they become part of the system and they begin acting like the system.
Yeah.
I've heard Tayaya get talk about it. He calls it co-optation.
It's a good word.
Yeah.
It is.
I don't know if he made it up or not. He might have.
I think he did. But it actually is. I think it actually hits the note correctly.
Yeah.
Because you like, and that's the thing is like kind of that actually ties in. You know what? We're actually segueing in a normal way. But like it kind of it harkens back to like what we were talking about with the virtuous people and not being in there. Well, there's a lot of people who, well, I won't say a lot in the modern age, but you know that there are virtuous people who actually did get into office, but became co-optized, you know?
Yeah.
And it's true. Happens to 95% of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's very rare that doesn't happen. Our local leadership, the appearances that we see, it's the same fucking thing,
Right.
you know? And honestly, I could sit here and say that if I had won and I was in that office, that I wouldn't do that. Because deep in my heart, I believe that I wouldn't. How the fuck do I know?
I'd break the system, I think.
I know you would.
I think I'd break the system and get voted out, like thrown out.
I believe I could see. That's the thing is like, and I'm willing to go there too. Is like, I am like as deep as my streak of pessimism and cynicism goes. I do think that that we should at least try, you know. And believe me, if it got to a certain point where we're doing our best to actually change it, and it just stays completely fucked,
Yeah.
then I'll be like, okay,
Right.
let's burn it down.
Right.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and our people don't participate.
No.
So how the fuck can we change anything?
No. The longhouses could control all the politics around here if they wanted to, and they don't.
They don't.
They don't. They could.
They could.
They could. We have the numbers.
Yeah. And the thing and that's what's fucked up too is then we're talking about this, and so going to the longhouse, everybody's bitching about tribal council, bitching about this, bitching about that. Okay, so let's talk about what we can do to change that. Good. Okay, well we're gonna have a meeting on whatever day for a few hours. Oh well, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Well, can you spare a few fucking hours of your time a week
Right.
to take care of something that you actively
Yeah.
protest against?
Right. You'll walk across a bridge for it.
Right. Like, Jesus Christ, let's fucking go.
Do you think some people just don't want a solution and it's easier to bitch? Because if you actually have a list of some solutions, that requires action.
For
And
sure.
that requires sacrifice, and that requires some pain.
Absolutely.
I mean, you see where I live. I'm not afraid of pain, suffering
No, that, and
to get to a larger goal.
right? I mean, that's exactly the whole thing is when, you know, so you get to that point and you're saying, okay, well, you love to bitch, you love to complain, you put no effort in to try to help, even just to help
Yeah.
people who actually will do most of the work. But you, I don't care what anybody says. One man on his own,
No.
that's never going to work.
No.
Never going to fucking work. And I don't know how many people I've heard. There's one guy I'm thinking of in particular in my mind. I'll do it by myself. Go ahead and you do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
See how fucking far you get.
Right.
Every movement in history, even if it started with a single man, when it came to its conclusion,
Yeah.
it wasn't just one man.
It was a whole movement.
Yep. And that's what I'm trying to, you know, even in like, if it sounds like I'm proselytizing, it's still the message that I try to get
Preach,
out.
brother, preach.
Hey, right? That's because I love to say proselytizing because sometimes that's what it fucking sounds like I'm doing.
And we should.
Yeah.
That's what our ancestors did. That's what the peacemaker did.
We're
That's
orators.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's our.
you're supposed to be persuasive.
Yeah.
You know, when you have a position, you don't agree, you go in, you talk.
Yeah.
Who's more convincing?
Yeah.
You know, who can articulate why they feel, why they think and feel this way in a manner that actually draws the attention, but can actually make the people see what you see. But you know what, too? And honestly, that's actually rare people, too, though.
Mm-hmm.
They are. It's rare.
Well, yeah, the actual vision.
Yeah.
Like, I guess even like stating what you want. Like, it's easy. It's easy for me to say what I don't want and see the problems, but it's a lot harder to say what you do want.
Absolutely.
What do I want? I do want. I want affordable housing that's nice. That's not shitty. That's like that works in a efficient way, but not like Soviet style efficiency.
Yeah.
Like forest style efficiency.
Yeah.
Like a forest is very efficient.
Yep.
And we can do it that way. I want our people to be educated and to be curious and to be successful in what they want to do. I want them to be creative. I want creativity to be celebrated. I want things to look cool.
Yeah.
Like it really bums me out when you can do anything and you make your stuff look like faux stone and big glass, and I know it's aesthetic, but dude, we could make it look like anything.
Yeah.
You could make it look like Battlestar Galactica. You could make it look like Rivendell. Like, why not?
Oh man, that'd be cool.
Right? Like, people think I'm joking. I'm not fucking joking.
No.
Like, our riverfront could be awesome and accessible to everyone, and that might take some property changes because everyone's gobbling up everyone who doesn't believe in land ownership is also gobbling up the shoreline.
Fucking right.
Like,
they are.
what? Just because your uncle died and left you it, you get to have it to the exclusivity? I know it's a little different on the Canadian side because they have the Navigation Act, but still.
Yeah, but it's still that thing. Like you like talking about, well, your uncle gave it to you. Well, here's the thing: those people who will espouse their, I guess even virtue signal, like it could actually be looked at in terms of the land and how it's held and the benefit of it for the people. Well, you're just perpetuating that, and you're not really looking at it in terms of, like, all these people want to say, well, we need to go by our cultural traditions and our traditional values. Okay. Well, one of them wasn't to fucking gobble up every fucking piece of land that you could that's advantageous for you for whatever purposes you want. Actually look at it as something that's for the benefit of the people.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be able to, because the way we hold land here is weird. You probably actually know that, but this is something maybe a lot of whoever listens to this might not know, but it really developed based on a European system. Like, he who clears it owns it. Yeah. And so that's become the mindset with us. And I'm not saying that, like, the land that I have where my house is at and, my garden and all that, I'm not saying that it's not mine to live and enjoy. But I also am cognizant of the fact that there are places that should be community use and available for everybody.
And there was once a time, we call them crown lands on the Canadian side. There were common lands. The Grass River Meadows were common lands. Yep. Somehow that ended up in white people's hands. How about that? Yeah. And so I think because there's also the other side of that. When everybody owns something, nobody owns it. So they don't take care of it. Yeah. For instance, you notice all the garbage in the ditches? Like, they don't have that off the res. They pick up their shit. So some land stewardship we're doing here. Yeah. So I do think the other side of that is, like, if you have 70 acres of land, you might be protecting the forest here, and cultivating it. And it's not that you're hoarding it. It's that you're actually making it do something and thinking about the future. Yeah. So that's the other side of that. But if you're building your mansion and bricking up the side of the shoreline, that might be another thing. Yeah. We might have a conversation about that going forward.
You know what? That's another, that's a good point, is because a lot of, and I'm not saying that this isn't important because it is, but the environment departments for MCA and the tribe are always talking about the erosion of the banks of the rivers, right? Yeah. It's a major problem. Yeah. So, I just wonder, and I have no fucking clue, like, coming from a scientific part, but I would imagine you probably do know a lot more. But it's just are those monstrosity mansions? They're probably exacerbating the issue. You know,
probably depending on the mansion and where it's built. I mean, you're not gonna have erosion when you have bricks going down to the shoreline,
right?
But you're not gonna have a shoreline either.
Exactly.
So that's habitat loss.
Because I don't like.
Yeah.
To me, it'd be cool to live on the river. You know.
Well, it really struck me when I went to New Hampshire a couple years ago, and we went to there's a beach or this town everybody goes through. I can't remember the name of it off Hampton Beach.
Okay.
So you go down to this little town, it's this white town, and access is controlled to the ocean. Like you just can't just go to the ocean. There's like gates, and there's places you can't park, and there's brick. And I'm like, fucking white people, they stole the ocean. Like,
yeah,
I'm not a communist, but I get it. Like I get the drive to want to just hang those fuckers.
Yeah.
Because how dare you?
Yeah.
How fucking dare you? Who are you? Because you have a piece of paper and some money? Fuck you.
Yeah.
If we have the numbers, fuck you. We'll set you on fire.
You know what? And that's, see, and I can agree with you, on that part, because why make it restrictive for people to experience natural beauty?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why?
Right.
What's the point? It's like, it's the desire for that control.
Yeah, it's a control thing, I think.
And why do you want to control everything?
Because
it does, like, I understand it in terms of like maybe like an academic understanding, I guess, of like, well, not academic, but it's you as you get older, you understand that that's human nature, and it just doesn't, for me, that's not evolution.
No,
that's regression.
Yeah,
because it's all greed. And I'll say this all the time, and I stick by it. Americans are the greediest motherfuckers on the planet. They are. Like, take. And that's become something that is also ingrained in American culture. And it bleeds into us.
Oh, for sure.
And you know that.
Well, also, I mean, there's also greed. People who've grown up poor are greedy in a different way, because it's like a hungry way. It's not in this casual consumption way. It's it's almost a desperation.
Yes.
I mean, you can see it in the poor towns around us. You can see that. And then you see it in the yards, the hoarding of stuff, and the collection.
Being fat.
Yeah, the collection of garbage. That's because it's it might be good for something someday. So it's one part not wasteful, and there's another part of like hoarding.
Yeah. And having grown up poor, it was that definitely, when you said it, that just in my head, it just rang so true to me, because the moment that, I started doing side jobs when I was younger, aside from my regular job, it wasn't like a ton of money, but if I made $1,000 extra, that shit was gone.
Yeah.
Because I grew up with very little. So and no semblance of financial literacy or anything was taught to me as a child. So, and all you see is poor.
Yeah.
So you're right. That's all you think about is, I'm actually hungry. So now that I can have food, I'm just going to eat and eat and eat. I mean, those things are, I think that's accurate. It has to be. And the hoarding thing, you should see I'll go to Home Depot and I'll buy, they mark some of them with the purple, and then it's like 75% off.
Yeah.
Whenever I see them in there and there's decent boards, I buy them all.
Yeah.
And then I stack them next to the pallets that I also collect.
Yeah.
So that I can build more raised tables to put my little kitty plastic pools on and grow my greens in it.
Yeah.
I do shit like that.
Yeah.
And it drives my wife nuts and it doesn't look good.
Right.
But I actually think you hit upon something that I'm going to talk to my therapist about, because I actually think that's on the money.
I have a gift for that.
Yeah, that was actually, I'm not giving you enough credit for being like a very yogi-ish person.
I'm approaching guruhood.
Yeah, you are. That's
Don't worry, my life's a disaster.
I know. Whoever's listening to this are listening to two people who are fucking just like want to blow shit up or just really are not exactly someone that you'd want to model your entire life after.
Yeah. Well, neither was Martin Luther King.
No.
Do you really want to be that guy?
Right. Is there any, that's the thing is, do you really think that there's any human being in the history of man, one single person you'd want to model your entire life off of? It's like everybody has faults.
Yeah. You've never heard of the guys that
that
live the life you actually want.
Because they're not interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting, the stories that we have from the crazy shit we did.
That's right. So, well, I guess, going back to blowing up systems, it's not just like, destruction either. It's creating the need.
Mm-hmm.
It's cultivating the set of events so that a better outcome can organically come about, because there's a control thing, right? We all have to watch out. I have control. You see me freaking out when I fucking cable,
Yeah.
Cable doesn't work. So, we have this attachment to control that probably comes from childhood.
Yes.
Like in Akwesasne, everyone has a very similar shared childhood. The degree to which our abuse happened varies from mild to horrific.
Yes.
Some of it probably the most horrific you've ever fucking heard of.
Yep.
And the farther back in time you go, the worse that gets.
Yep.
So, so we have a similar collection of mental illness.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah.
And it's not that different. Like, that's why I work with people from, they live in urban ghetto, and it's very similar
Mm-hmm.
in their issues.
That's, my wife will say, we were talking to some of my friends before, and they're from they're from the hood in New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she told them once, we were the original ghettos.
Yeah.
And that's true.
Well, that's what ghetto means, right?
Yeah.
Ghetto's a Jewish word that meant a place where just the Jewish people are.
Yeah.
It sounds a hell of a lot like a reservation.
And it is.
Yeah.
I mean, and you stick us in where you want us to be, not necessarily the place we want to be, or that would be most advantageous for us to flourish, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, there's no way to look at the history of it and see the current state that Native people are in and tell me with a straight face that wasn't what happened.
Yeah.
Or that's not where we find ourselves now.
I mean, like with us, we're a little lucky. If you're a trading people, this is a great spot.
Well,
but if you're a farmer, not so much.
no, and the history of like how our territory now came to be. And as much as people are going to get pissed at me for this, a lot of that was due to the Jesuits.
It sure was.
They knew that this was an advantageous spot.
Yeah.
So they were like, well, let's build the church here that's really a fucking fortress.
Yeah.
At the top of a hill.
Right.
On the river.
Yeah.
To see everything coming.
Yeah, exactly. It's smart.
Yeah, it was smart.
Yeah.
And
our ancestors had agency. That's what people also forget. They like to wrap themselves up in, while colonization was this thing forced upon us completely with no agency. That's not true. A lot of people just happily became.
Yeah.
I mean, the Christian mythos is, has some good to it.
Yeah.
If you use it right.
Yeah.
So it's, it's not, a lot of those people back then were happily Catholic. Which actually makes residential schools it's worse than people think, because it's not like, they took our kids, they forced the religion on. No, they took Catholics and did this to them.
Yep.
No, it was worse than that.
I mean, I was talking to somebody, and they're Catholic, and they were talking about that kind of stuff, and I don't think that a lot of the people understand that when the Jesuits, when they were in, like, back when Mohawks lived in the valley, that was a main population base. the Catholicism and Christianity, it was very appealing to the women, especially because the men were drinking a lot. And that was discouraged in what these, Catholic people were pushing.
Yeah.
So, it was interesting for me to hear that history and that, it started with a lot of women, and then they went to K-Town.
Yeah.
And then the men eventually said, hey, our women are gone. We're going to go with them, and, we're going to try to smarten the fuck up.
Right.
But it's an interesting part of the history. And that's why I try to not demonize Catholicism in its entirety, because honestly, that's absurd.
Yeah.
How can you legitimately sit there and say it's all bad? It's not all bad.
Yeah.
There are things that, my understanding of it too was that the Jesuits played a big part in preserving the language.
Yeah, that's true.
So
ironically, the church did a lot of stuff in the language until there was a Mohawk priest. That's a fucking shitter. You finally get a Mohawk priest, and he's the one who fucks off with the language. Fucking guy.
But that's interesting to me.
Yeah.
I find that interesting because there's always these dueling views, right? And you go extremist on one side or the other, and how the fuck does that work out? It never does.
No.
But can't we all be honest with each other without freaking out about hearing a historical, factual fact?
And that's the stories I like to hear. Like I'm less interested in the painted version of our history, and I'm more interested in like the day to day, like the grandmother who, that one time their house got raided by the Dominion police because they were bootleggers, and that's what they did on the side, and that sounds very familiar to today.
Yep.
And the kids hid in a boat because if they got found out, they'd get sent to boarding school. And they were pagan kids too, so that was even worse. And so a lot of times the pagan kids avoided that shit because the parents would hide them. The Catholics were on board a lot of times. So all of that, like, it's a much more interesting history.
It is.
I think that's why I like that show Reservation Dogs, because it actually paints a lot of those things.
Yeah.
You know, it's less of this, the noble Indians living. It's like, no, these are just res kids, and this is the kind of shit that happens. These are the white people they interact with, and this is, the cross culture. You got the one guy who totally wants to be native.
Okay, you're talking about that chunky white kid, right?
Which that
drives the black Caprice or
there's
whatever.
a chunky white kid, and then there's the one white friend, and then there's the he's played by Kirk Fox. He's the junkyard owner that sells meth on the side.
Oh yeah.
And
he's
like,
hilarious.
Yeah, he's like he's a little bit of a nerd about native stuff.
A wannabe.
Yeah. And there's a chunky white kid. There's the one white kid that's friends with the native kids.
See, I could never figure out in that show. I actually thought that kid might be a half-breed like me that looks like a white guy. But I never got an answer on that yet.
Yeah.
So you think he's just a white kid?
I think he's the white friend. He's like the one white friend.
Yeah, that's every crew's got one on the res,
Yeah.
Everybody's got their white boy.
Yeah. Sometimes they end up your cousin.
Yeah. That's I can pass for them, but I'm not the true. You got to get your own white guy.
Yeah. When the trains come for everybody, we're gonna cut our hair.
Yeah, I know that. I'm gonna grow out my orange beard as much as I can.
Yeah,
and rock with it. But it's a funny thing because you're looking at it and it's just the dynamic. That's why I like Res Dogs too, is because I miss those years of being a teenager growing up on the res. But I find that show, as you said, instead of this sort of mythical creature that white people frequently want to make natives out to be, Res Dogs is more real.
Yeah.
It's that's the way I look at it. And that's why I'm serious about this. I want to write a show about us.
Yeah.
And do it like Soprano style, but mixed in with, say, Seinfeld.
Yeah.
I'm serious, because there's so much funny and tragic shit that happens in Akwesasne that I think that there's room in there to do something like that, and it be more specific to us, because I've met people from out west, I've met Lakotas before, but as much as those things cross over, like certain things, like that must be kind of pan-Indian,
Right, like burning tobacco.
right? Like
from all that tobacco that grows in the Great Plains.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, where'd you get that from?
It's right next to the sage we grow here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. That sage is ours. But the thing to me is, as well as, so like you want to get that more authentic voice out there, and what better way to do it than to have people? And honestly, I would lift stories from people from here, if they were okay with it, and incorporate that into a show, because the dynamic here, it's got to be way different than it is out there. Yeah, it has to be. How could it not be?
Our lifestyle, like our ancestors are different.
Yeah, like why would I? That's one thing, is I don't want to assume that for some reason that their experiences in their nation is almost the same as ours here.
Yeah.
Because now I'm thinking like a white person.
Yeah. Yeah.
What good does that do?
And just think of the history. Like I have this like theory that, Haudenosaunee adopted town living a lot easier than say Cree. But just because our ancestors were town people already. We had an urban center.
Yep.
There's brief times in our history where we're nomadic, but for the most part, we're settled people. And it's the same with what they call them, the five civilized tribes.
Right.
It's the same with them, and they're actually cousins of ours.
Yeah.
And whereas if you have like a steppe, I like to listen to Dan Carlin. He talks about steppe peoples, people who live on the steppe, and the Great Plains is the steppe. It's like the same fucking thing. Yeah. It's the same kind of environment. And so you add horses to the mix, and you have steppe people. They're not much different than Mongols. They're not much different in their history.
Yeah.
So that makes a total sense that their culture is much different than our settled culture. Just like, Cree kind of wander around because the North is like the North. You can't really gather and settle one space without space heaters. You just can't do it. Yeah, energy's at a premium there. So, when the colonists came and made them turn into this, town people, it hurt them a lot more than maybe it hurt us.
Yeah, I think that's true.
And I see that out west too, because there's a dynamic with the Hopi and the Dene. So the Dene kind of wander, right? They have these like paths they wander, and Hopis have villages like us. They grow corn, and they're magical. They turn invisible, and I don't know. They got cool hair. I like them. They're really short. So you have the Pueblo people who are, they have towns just like we had towns, and their interaction and their history. So their history is different than the Dene people. They had this interaction between the two.
Right.
That was, sometimes good and sometimes not.
Probably inevitable.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that's one thing that I don't think we can get away from, is that humans at their core, I guess you would say like the reptilian part of the brain, is pretty much the same. But those are just those primal urges. Yeah. I totally believe in that every culture produces different people. Yeah. Because otherwise, look at Japan. Were you and me talking about? We were.
Maybe we know so much about Japan.
Well, that was the thing. It's interesting because you look at, or like even watch or read some stuff about, say, Singapore. It's fucking spotless there. Yeah. Because they put a premium on the collective. They put a premium on respect
and orderliness.
Yes, and you can definitely tell Americans were born out of something that wasn't orderly. Right. And that carries through. Now, does it help to be able to essentially be the largest power that the world's ever known? Yeah. But I also believe that can really be your downfall in terms of societal harmony.
And it one beget the other. Is America's so creative because of the disharmony, because of the disunity and all of that. Did that create? Is that what you need for that kind of creativity? I don't know.
For innovation,
Because
I don't know.
media and entertainment comes out of the U.S.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they're the kings. Music, you name it, you fucking name it.
Yep.
And it all got stolen from Africa.
Yeah, well, I mean, that, you know what? Honestly, though, that's true. Is that because you look at now me, I'm like, I'm kind of an Anglophile. I love English TV and movies.
Okay.
Love it. But there is no doubt that, you know, the majority of media that comes out of the world that's good
Yeah.
comes out of the U.S.
Yeah.
And you might be onto something there.
Or the
Maybe
U.S.
it
is
is
hat.
that.
Canada.
Is what?
Canada. United States is hat.
Yeah. I mean, you know, maybe those things, I don't know. I wonder if people have ever explored that before.
Probably. I don't
They
know.
had to have, right?
Maybe. I'm sure there's a whole
You
college
can't
question.
be, maybe
I'm not
you
that
are.
smart.
I don't know. Maybe you are.
I must have read it somewhere. I just consume a lot of stuff, and
Maybe we should call this show Two Guys Who Are Not Dumb.
yeah, ADHD theater.
We're not saying that we're geniuses or anything. No. We're just not stupid. That's about the highest compliment I'll give myself. Because in general, I hate myself. So
yeah, we'll practice some of that self-love.
Yeah, I know.
What's our word of affirmation today?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think Akwesasne, where we are potential.
Yeah,
and we are capable of not just forging a good future, but like our own future. Because I put a premium on freedom. Like, I like freedom. That's why I don't want to blow everything up. I want to create the conditions for something organically to arise that's better.
Yes.
Because it's not like we're coming from a thing that works. You know, we're not saying, well, we have this housing system that works great, but let's blow it all up. No, we have it. It kind of sucks. You know, it really sucks the way we do housing around here, or the environment. It sucks. It doesn't have to suck.
Right.
The way we do dispute resolution sucks. It doesn't work well.
That is terrible.
It's a cocksuck. It really is. Like, the court system is garbage. It's fucking garbage. It's confusing. It makes no sense.
Agreed.
It's a bare, crummy facsimile of the outside. And they can say, well, throw no more money on it. I don't think that's the answer.
No.
I don't think. I think the outside sucks, and we just do it worse.
Yes.
So I think the casino sucks. I think the casino could be better. I had a friend who's a gamer who says, well, we can make this shit 10 times more addictive.
Yeah.
And they don't want to listen to him. You know, he gets to fuck off and find a job somewhere else. Because the people are afraid, oh, we're going to have to copy Vegas. And Vegas and Atlantic City don't do it this way. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're wrong.
Right.
And let's fucking do it our way. And if it fails, it fails. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. That's called business. You take a risk. I'm always for more freedom and for more creativity.
I'm for more freedom, and I like creativity too. Like when you said the thing about Vegas, it got me thinking, is Vegas the huge revenue generator that it is because they're doing innovative, creative things, or is it just because they were the first? Mm-hmm. And it's just always been that way.
And there's nowhere else.
That's what I mean.
There's nowhere else.
So, why not try to... I'm not saying that I want Akwesasne to be Vegas, because I sure as fuck don't. Mm-hmm. However, why not try to do something like what the Oneidas do and create your own area, that doesn't have to be an impediment to where the people mostly live, all that stuff, and then build that up and see, hey, let's try these creative ideas and say, fuck Vegas. Let's see if it works.
Yeah. Why don't we build a giant passive apartment buildings or condos and put people in there instead of, renovating an IGA for $25 or $30 million.
Dude, I can't fucking stand it.
And then all those people that work there, if they can work from home, they should work from home.
Yes.
And why are we spending money on the energy to heat a giant place? And why are we going to have the water system for a giant place when we could have a dozen or 24 houses or more for the same cost? Or
way more.
Or several buildings, like several.
I mean, for $30 million,
yeah.
I was talking to somebody who they were, I don't know. They're friends with this person, this guy who he can make those like 3D printed houses.
Yeah.
And I guess that you could get like a decent sized 3D printed house built for like 15 grand.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's not counting like, you know, obviously running the electric, all that kind of shit. But I mean, think about that.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to what you said about those facades on, you know, pretty buildings. They got fake stone and a lot of glass. Great. They look beautiful. I totally agree. But is that necessary?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, my house is small and it just looks like another house. But for me, I don't even care about it looking as fancy as it does. Like, I don't really care. I'll live in a box as long as it's nice and functional on the inside and I'm comfortable. If I can do it in a way that's, you know, not going to hurt the environment as much, that's going to be something that isn't going to prevent further improvement for other people, I'll do that shit. I don't care. You know what I mean? It's like, because I remember we were talking about this before, like during the campaign, and I ruminated on it more after you had said this, but that the idea of all of us here being able to get, like, to be able to build a homestead now, that's not, you're right, it's not possible.
Yeah.
It's just
I think most people don't want it either. They like the idea, but in practice, they don't.
Yeah.
In practice, it's a pain in the ass.
It is.
And having a nice neighbor, like, sometimes my friends who rent, it must be so nice to have a landlord to call when something breaks.
Yeah.
You know what? If my pipes freeze, I get to crawl under this place. If I had a cat in my fucking HVAC system,
Jesus.
I must have an open something underneath.
Well, I saw the kittens outside.
Yeah. So I'm like, fuck. You know, everything it's broken. I have to fix.
Yeah.
It must be nice to have a super to just fucking call.
Fuck yeah.
Call a guy. They throw money at it. Their problem, not mine.
Yep. That's what I mean. It's we were having troubles. Well, I think I told you that we were having troubles with our boiler and, you know, all this shit. And I love my house, but there's time, because you know you're a homeowner too. There are times when things happen like that, and I thought to myself, Jesus, how nice would it be to be 17 again like my son, and I don't got to worry about none of this fucking shit.
Yeah.
I just call a guy and that's it, you know. But it's the realities of being an adult, which, you know, I mean, young at heart, I guess, but it's why my wife and I really try to impress upon our son, just be a kid. Just be a kid. You know, we'll teach you things, how to conduct yourself, all that, but don't wish to grow up too fast.
Right.
Because when you hit that age, you're going to be like, holy fuck, this sucks. It's not as much fun as I thought it was going to be. And my mom told me that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
You know?
And your kid will tell their kid that.
Yep. And that's one of the things I'm most proud of, is that we have created an environment for my son that he can actually enjoy that childhood. And that's, you know, the biggest thing.
That's a good place to end.
Yeah.
Yeah. We call this the Wandering Political Podcast.
Meandering.
Yeah, meandering. We'll actually release it one of these days.